Hey Brenda, I just apologize that I haven't answered your message yet. Okay, oops. Your message here, I just want to go through the message. I hadn't answered because I was going to go to Spain and we are going to have discussions with Valencia and had several discussions, okay, with people there. And that can be key contacts to enable this. Okay, you seem to be much more interested in the social part. Okay, let's say that there's a papers part, let's say potential residence and passport. There's what rights that could see, in terms of social and healthcare. And then there's the investment. You see less interested in the investment. I think it's an interesting discussion, okay, because I see enormous potential in terms of the amount of people. I'll share some data. Okay, this is just a little bit of a fast catch up. Okay, but I'll share some data about the growth of tourism industry in Spain. It's just absolutely exponential. Okay, and there's quite a bit of opportunity because of the money. What the money can get you. Okay, with legal security. I want to reinforce this very strongly because, as I mentioned, out of the top 20 countries in terms of legal security in the world, 16 are European. Okay, and Singapore is up there, to be fair. Okay, but it means that you get a contract, you're going to be protected as long as you have the right people. Okay, you can always get screwed. That's why, you know what I mean? You have the Spanish contacts. And so, in terms of that, yes, the 500K get you a golden visa. This depends on many countries. It has happened in Malta, it has happened in Portugal. They're going to cut it down. Okay, this is happening sometime sooner or later because the European Union is an entity that it's kind of like the US, and it tries to regulate, make sure that the states, which are the Spain, Portugal, Germany, France, don't do things that affect the rest. Okay, so it's going to get clamped down eventually, but there are ways, especially above 500K for sure. Okay, this 500K was the low bar. If you have more money, it's even easier. Okay, and I think the interesting, as long as you set up a company, you invest a certain amount of capital, and you meet some certain requirements, and this is relatively easy. Why? Because this is a lot of money in the context of these countries. Okay, and you can set up companies and you can have services. And then focusing on your questions, and you can get the PR with a golden visa without even residing. Okay? And the passport, yes, you will eventually need to reside. They're going to give you a passport generally without residing. But in terms of rights, in terms of healthcare, once you you reside, you get an ID and you get a medical card. Okay, and you can access public services because supposedly your investment will pay with taxes, and supposedly, and this is very important. Okay, if we set up companies that employ people, okay, this is what in Europe is all about: employment, about having people employed, and then that makes it incredibly easy. A little bit like happens in Singapore. As long as you employ people, investment is made easy. Okay, and Europe is much more complicated than Singapore, but with the right setup, and that can work. Okay, then insurance, yes, when you're 50 years old. So this is always, if you try to go there when you're 60 years old, it's going to be a little bit harder because obviously they're the measurements, even though it's not a point system like Australia and or the US. Obviously, there's less interest in having 60-year-olds, retirees there. However, you have to understand that the system is really cheap. This is the big thing. Costs are so much lower than the US. It's not that they're absorbing the cost for the sake of absorbing the cost. The costs are just so much lower. Why? Because first, doctors are in Europe are not rich people, are not intended to be rich people like in Asia or maybe in some parts of the US. You do it for the love of the job, which means that sometimes there's restrictions how many people will do it. That's the important thing. Doctors are generally not rich people. Okay, this is very important. Cost much lower because you have the public service that is incredibly cheap. Okay, or Jigsaw that I go to every, I'm paying 30 euros and I go to every doctor. I'm 44 years old and I go to every doctor meeting and I pay €1. Okay, well, I prepaid my card and I just show a card and everything is prepaid. I went to get scanned immediately, just book the meeting, my prepaid card, that it cost me every action will cost me like €1 something like this. Okay, this is the best private insurance in Barcelona. Okay, then there's a little bit of context. Yes, for a person like my dad is 80 years old and he's paying 180 euros a month. 80 years old. Obviously, he got it before. The later you get it, let's not would assume that you might be paying for full insurance for a 60 or a 50-year-old person, I would assume you're paying 150 euros. Okay, I can check that. It's not very difficult to check. But this is the key thing that you have to understand: is the healthcare system is structurally much cheaper because it's not a money-making machine, because the government provides it, and because that forces the private sector to be much, much cheaper, which doesn't happen in the US. One of the reasons is that in the US or in Singapore, first comes private and comes public as a backup. In Europe, it's the opposite. First comes public, and private generally only differentiates in service, giving more service, giving you a better room, all this. But for example, people want top care. Like my mom, okay, she had this private insurance. She wants top care. Where did she go? She went to the public. Okay, she was getting the best care. We had this hospital in the center of Barcelona with views of the sea from the Medellin. But the key factor here is that you are when the top treatment, she had to get the top treatment or the surgery, went to the public, okay, because it's the highest service that you can get. When you want, you get a room by yourself. Depends, you can pay a little bit extra and get a room by yourself. But generally, people that's the comfort level is where you maybe sacrifice. But in general, you can get, even if you pay some extra, a room by yourself if they're not stupid. Okay, so that's a little bit the context that you're getting. In terms of those services, you'll get them as soon as you're a PR. You're able to, as soon as you get an ID. Okay, it's a little bit like in Singapore. The only thing is that with much more stability than compared to Singapore, which you're connected to your job, unless you, PR without the 5-year renewal. In general, the big difference is that Singapore or other countries might say like, okay, do we still want this person? In general, in European systems, it's kind of a let's call it fair system. I don't know how to say it, but it basically means, hey, as long as you comply with what you need to comply, we're going to cover it. Okay, that was a little bit of a long explanation. But what I wanted to say is the business side, please don't discount it. Okay, I'm trying to get your feedback on this, and maybe someone else to work with on this, because I do want, and obviously I need the Chinese contact, the person who can really operate in that context. But the investment opportunities, I have the companies already to make investments, small and big. Okay, we're talking about small apartments, big ones, hotels. Just we have it and we have a couple of cities that are we're going to have massive growth, and that's, I think, the key. Okay, in terms of growth, in terms of yields, and people renting out. The passport, it's not guaranteed like anything, but the path is relatively clear, especially if we're talking about certain amount of money. And the services, the services are there. Okay, as long as you get a PR, you get the service. Okay, and that's quite important. And you don't need to wait 5 years to get that, because with the golden visa, for sure not. With other systems, you take a little bit longer, but you get that PR. And once you have the ID, you can go and basically you can get medical services. You can hire private medical services at the cost that I'm mentioning. And you can get the lovely jamón that Jim has enjoyed, and all the other qualities of life that Jim has. Hope that was helpful. Okay, apologies for a little bit of delay. I want to talk to all these guys, and now I have an assortment of companies, and I understand the companies that can help in this investment. I have a couple of lawyers that are super keen on this, and I think the opportunity is enormous. Okay, and if you want to talk about